All right, Mike Bledsoe here with TechniqueWOD again. We're going over overhead squats. Super simple. As you know, with a squat, your butt is gonna get closer to the ground. So that's the goal with a weight overhead. So we're gonna set up our feet just like you would a front squat or a back squat. There's a couple ways you can get in the overhead squat position. You can snatch it up. So get a snatch grip, pull the bar off the floor, snatch. A lot of people, if they're doing it during a WOD, will do a clean, jerk it over their head, reset their hands, get it up that way. Or if you're going for a max overhead squat, if you're gonna do something real heavy, you'll pull it out of a rack. It'll be in a rack, you'll pull it out and go here. As far as the grip width on your hands, a lot of times I like to just go the same exact width as I do for my snatch, because if I'm doing an overhead squat, I'm trying to get better at my snatch, all right? But a lot of times if you're doing multiple reps, it's gonna take its toll on your wrists a little bit. So it's okay to go a little more narrow if you have the mobility necessary to get into a more narrow grip. A lot of times people will have a harder time, or it'll be harder on their shoulders and back the more narrow they go. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just pop this bar up. And what I want you to note is this bar is gonna be over the base of my neck. So I'm not gonna be like way back here, and I'm not gonna be out here in front. It's gonna be over the base of my neck. The other thing too is we're gonna look at my elbows. A lot of times people tend to wanna have their elbows back this way, and me just doing that hurts my shoulders. You wanna turn your elbows down, okay? Another way to think about this is to show your armpits to everyone in front of you. So I'm gonna show my armpits, point my elbows down, and then I'm gonna think about spreading the bar with my hands. This is gonna put your shoulders in that active position you may hear coaches talking about all the time, all right? So elbows down, showing armpits, pulling that bar apart. You're in a nice tight position here. I'm also trying to point the palms of my hands towards the ceiling. All right, now we've got covered the overhead position. We're gonna maintain this while we do a squat. So a lot of times people want to teach like the powerlifting squat, like reach your butt back, reach your butt back, reach your butt back. Not a good idea for the overhead squat. What I want you to do is I want you to just set your butt. You're still gonna initiate the movement with your hips, but you're gonna let your butt go straight down and move your butt towards your heels, all right? So my knees are actually getting a lot of forward travel here. So I'm at the bottom of the squat, knees are nice and wide, and my butt is trying to get as close to my heels as possible. Why do I wanna be here? Well, first of all, I can get lower. Second of all, this is where I'm gonna catch my snatch. When I do a snatch, I'm gonna catch it here, okay? And I wanna be strong in this position, all right? So you're knocking overhead squats. This is what they'll look like. Doug, you wanna talk about mobility? This is where the fog comes through.
Transition.
Transition.
One.
Whoa, we're back. All right, part two of overhead squats. I'm going to talk about mobility. A lot of people have trouble with overhead squats because if you have a mobility restriction almost anywhere, it's going to screw up the movement. So, if you look here, as I go through an overhead squat, you can see the places that I need a lot of mobility. I need a lot of mobility at my ankles. My knees are bending, but they're probably not restricting me ever. Unless you've had a previous knee surgery, they're probably not restricting you from going down. Usually it's the ankle or the hip. I'm getting a lot of bending at my hip. I need a lot of upper back extension, and I need a lot of shoulder flexion. So if you have a restriction in any one of those places, then you're probably gonna compensate somehow. If I can't bend my ankles, I'm either gonna overhead squat where I bend over really far and my arms are way behind me like I'm about to flap away and take off. Or my knees are going to, as my feet rotate out, my knees are going to dive in that wompy knee position. So I keep walking you off the off the court here. In that wompy knee position, and that's really hard on your knees, and you're tearing on your ACL and your MCL and all kinds of other structures in your knees, and that's bad for your knees. So you don't want to do that. If you have a lack of hip mobility, then you're not going to be able to go down very far, or your knees might dive in. If you have a lack of shoulder flexion or a lack of upper back extension, then likely you're going to bend your elbows like this and or lean back like this, okay? See a lot of people, they can't quite get overhead and they lean back or they hyperextend their back like that, okay? Usually they're kind of broken at the neck like I just was also. So if that's the case, And you need to first find out where you have a mobility restriction, and then when you find it, then you need to go fix it. We go into this in a lot of depth in maximum mobility, but I'm gonna give you a couple of quick points right now. So first, check to see if you have enough ankle range of motion. If you put your feet all the way together like this and then squat all the way down, you should be able to get all the way to the bottom with your feet on the ground. If you can do this, then you probably can do just about anything that you need to do as far as ankle range of motion goes. Okay? So check that first. If you can't get all the way down, then you need to go stretch your ankles. The easiest ankle stretch is just to go like this and kind of pull yourself up, stretching your calf and all the other structures in your lower leg. Okay? Number 2, hip flexion. I like to take a big step, put my hand on my foot, squeeze the glute on my back leg, and then just pull my shoulders high and my hips down. Again, always squeezing my glute on the back leg, keep me in a neutral spinal position where I'm not hyperextending. I'm getting a lot of hip flexion with a vertical shin on my front leg, very similar to where I'm going to be in the bottom of a deep squat. Okay? So that's the stretch that I would do for more hip flexion. For your shoulders and your upper back, for your upper back, you can do thoracic extensions on a roller. I place this in the middle of my back and I'm lengthening my upper back over the roller. Okay? I'm not lengthening, I'm extending rather my upper back over the roller. I'm not hyperextending my lower back. I'm not reaching with my head. I'm just trying to flatten my upper back over the roller. So if you're a person that chronically stands in this slouched position, it's going to be really hard for you to reach overhead until you get more extension where your shoulder blades can come back and you can lock your elbows out overhead in a nice solid, stable position. So that's number 3 for your upper back. The last one is if you lack shoulder flexion and it's hard for you to reach overhead, then you can test it by being on your back with your feet out in front of you. That'll keep your low back against the ground. Grab a bar and just see if you can get all the way to the ground. What tends to happen is that if you can only go to here, then to get your hands to the ground, I'm going to hyperextend my back like that to get my hand on the ground. Okay? Now there's all this space underneath my back. I'm in a hyperextended position. Okay? So that's how you're going to test to see if you have enough shoulder flexion range of motion to get into a good, solid overhead position with a stable shoulder in a safe shoulder position. Okay? Again, if I don't have this range of motion, then I'm probably going to lean back or hyperextend my back just like I was just talking about. Okay? So there's a couple different ways that you can test to see if you have enough range of motion to do overhead squats correctly. If you have a deficit or lack of range of motion in any one of those, ranges of motion at any one of those joints, then number 1, you should go fix that range of motion first before you try to do a whole lot of full depth snatches and a whole lot of full depth overhead squats. Because if you don't have the range of motion at all, you're not going to have the range of motion with a lot of weight over your head. You're not going to have the range of motion when you're moving at very high speeds. You're not going to have a lot of range of motion when you're fatigued. Okay? So get the range of motion first, and then you can progress on to that full movement.
If you like this video or any of our other videos, make sure to share it on your Facebook wall by clicking share and then the Facebook icon, and then also like it. Thanks, Shrugged Thugs.